Oh boy, this might be a long one. Hello everyone, I'm Pi Studios, and I'm going to rant about a Persona game that has no consequence on the Persona timeline. I think. This game definitely took its sweet time to come out to the West, but was the wait worth it? After radio silence from Atlas West, and after all this time, what do I think of it? Let's get into Persona 5 Strikers. This game is very, very polarizing for me, as it does so many things well, but then falls flat on its face when it comes to other sections of the game. Let's start off with the localization, as I think it's worth noting. The dialogue itself is fine, nothing wrong with it in any specific way. The problem is the voice acting. It's not good. The bulk of the acting was done at home due to Atlas's incompetency at scheduling. The bulk of the recording was supposed to start in March 2020 if COVID hadn't happened, which is just why? Royal was releasing in March, and the recording for that was done in 2019, so why couldn't they have continued where they left off then? I get that they might not have had a script done, but SMT4's localization was released within 2 months of the Japanese version. Granted, there was no pandemic to contend with, but it just proves that Atlus can do so much better if they actually care to do things in a timely fashion. The acting isn't brilliant for most characters, but I'd say the audio balancing is worse. Some characters are incredibly quiet for like 2-3 lines in the whole game, and it's just those few lines that are incredibly distracting when they happen. It's so strange.
Alice's voice? Yeah, did you really go through all this? There were some truly terrible things said in the classroom as well.
I believe this is why Alice's world so far went directly to the time.
You can tell the audio engineers were struggling, as there's a bit of white noise in a few clips, though it's only noticeable when you turn off the music. The majority of the audio snafus are in the beginning of the game, and it shapes up right after the first jail, which is super odd. Let's get into something that I actually like about the game. The combat and dungeon exploration is probably the best part, as Koei Tecmo knows how to design fun and engaging levels, and they did a damn good job here, I'd say. There are only 1 or 2 jails where I'd say it needed some more time in the oven. The levels are designed for traversal with every character, so there's no character-specific gimmicks, thankfully. They're not too long, and the level themes are all pretty cool, as they're loosely based on the city in which you're visiting, making it feel more seamless to travel between them. The majority of these jails take place outside, which I thought was an interesting difference between Persona 5, as all of those generally took place inside some sort of structure once you get going. This game is pretty different from a typical Persona game, as the calendar system is here, but only in spirit. Once you leave a dungeon, you can go get some items and hop right back in. It's pretty nice, but at the same time, it unnecessarily drags out playtime. And once you leave the jail, you automatically get healed, but there's no punishment for immediately going back in, so why not just make checkpoints healing stations? It's an extra step that doesn't need to be there. And if you like Warriors games, you'll like the combat here. It's the same 1-2 punch that's in every Warriors game, but that's only a bad thing depending on your taste. Unlike most Warriors games though, the pacing is actually good, at least when it comes to battles. The Warriors games I've played have levels that are so goddamn long that they lose their luster after like 3 minutes. Persona 5 Strikers is nothing like that though. These battles are actually paced well and don't take up half an hour. By the 3rd jail, your characters could be incredibly overpowered, making most enemy encounters terribly easy. The mid-level bosses and final dungeon bosses are no joke though. You will keep dying if you're not super strategic about how you fight. It's fairly common to die to attacks even if they aren't close to you, especially if the boss has a big hitbox. Your teammates also like to go and attack enemies whenever they feel like it, wasting their SPs and leaving you with drained characters if you're not careful. And because this is a modern Persona title, they give you SP healing items like rations, and there are some times where an enemy or hazard is preventing you from leaving a jail, basically leaving you stranded with no SP or items to help you. This happened to me twice and it was very frustrating. The dungeon design towards the middle of the game encourages exploring every nook and cranny to find items, and you'll generally be rewarded for going off the beaten path. One gripe I do have with the dungeons is the physics. Walking and running around feel fine enough, but once you jump it just falls apart. The jumping feels awful. You lose just about any sort of forward momentum you had beforehand. And there's also 2D platforming sections for some reason, and they feel even worse than 3D. It doesn't ruin traversal, it's fine enough once you get used to it, but it just shouldn't be there in my opinion. With that out of the way, let's get into the story. The gang meet up about 6 months after the events of Persona 5, and they're almost immediately thrown into trouble. It's discovered that the popular new AI assistant, Emma, is linked to the metaverse, which somehow still exists, okay? The gang then find out that multiple people are using the Emma app to control the people of their respective cities, making themselves monarchs of their own jails in the process. However, the blame for the mass brainwashing is put on the Phantom Thieves by the police of Japan, and they're given the summer to prove their innocence. They then go out and try to locate every jail, taking down the monarchs in the process. These monarchs are different than the palace owners in Persona 5, as they're written in a way to make you feel sympathetic for them. The problem is, they're way too shallow to truly connect to as characters. They also try to make connections between a specific Phantom Thief and a monarch per jail, but it kinda falls flat and feels really shallow. On is in the showbiz like Alice, Yusuke and Natsume are both creatives, even if what they do is completely different. Haru and Mariko just so happen to know each other, because Mariko met Haru when she was a child. It's a nice touch, but the connections are so loose they should have been fleshed out more, or just cut out. I'd say the best connection was Haru and Mariko, as they actually talk about their pasts with each other, but even then it's haphazardly thrown in. As if Haru had no idea that this person who she's known for her whole life was the mayor of Sapporo, a big city with a Big Bang Burger in it. But whatever.
The returning cast of characters are also pretty shallow. Almost all the spin-offs have had worse character writing than the main games, and Strikers is no exception. The cast have been dumbed down, basically 2-bit versions of their previous selves. They try to shove in character development with side quests you can do for them, but again, they're super shallow and not well thought out. These side quests also replace confidants entirely.
There's 2 new party members, and they're easily the best characters in the game, with Zenkichi flat out being the best character. Not only does he actually have development, his dynamic with the Phantom Thieves was cleverly written. Being a 40-plus-year-old man, he obviously doesn't think or act like a teenager, giving the Phantom Thieves a reality check when they may need it. Zenkichi's past and current troubles genuinely make you feel for the guy, even if the current predicament he's in is his fault.
Sophia is a bit more divisive. Her story is that she's an AI with the sole purpose of being humanity's companion. She can get a bit annoying, but she's also cute, so she gets a pass. I'm gonna avoid any major spoilers, but I'll say that the main villain in the game is very predictable. Their motivations are incredibly shallow and honestly just kinda dumb. Since this game is on PC and Switch, there's going to be a pretty large amount of people buying this who haven't played Persona 5. In my opinion, you don't have to play Persona 5 to understand this game's story, but it'll definitely help when they reference characters and places not found in this game. The soundtrack does not disappoint in the slightest. It is easily one of the best OSTs in modern Persona. The new tracks weren't even made by Shoji Meguro, but they fit inside the game just as well as his remixed compositions. All in all, it's very good and definitely worth listening to outside of the game. It's also getting a full CD release soon, along with it coming to streaming services in Japan only. Thanks, Atlas. It's easy enough to find rips of the CD online, though.
What's interesting about this game is that it was meant to be only on PS4, but then Koei Tecmo recommended a Switch release, and Atlas just didn't object. After the success of the PC port for Persona 4 Golden, Sega decided to have Koei Tecmo make a PC port in time for the localized release. Since this game wasn't really meant for PC or Switch, both versions are fairly compromised and honestly not that great. PC less so, as you have ways to fix the issues with the port. Since Koei Tecmo's Warriors engine is trash, anti-aliasing's a must. Problem is, their AA technique wasn't properly implemented, meaning it ruins on-screen text and UI elements. To fix this, you can apply AA at the driver level with whatever GPU you use. I use NVIDIA, so I just go into the control panel and I set FXAA to on for Strikers. At launch, the PC version also likes to crash whenever it feels like it, and when applying the graphics settings, they sometimes just don't work. The only reason you should get the Switch version is if you don't have any other way to play, or if you must play it portably. The frame rate is okay in docked mode, but in portable mode it's borderline unusable. Still better than Age of Calamity though, but that's not a high bar to pass. I have so many clips of the frame rate absolutely tanking on Switch, it's not even funny. In docked mode, the game runs around 900p, while playing portably, it runs at sub 720p. The PS4 version is the most stable by a long shot, as it gives you 2 different performance options for your ideal experience. If you want 60 FPS locked, go with the frame rate option. If you want higher resolution, with FPS being less important, go with graphics. The frame rate's still mostly locked to 60, but can drop. The unfortunate thing is that the anti-aliasing on PS4 is messed up, like on PC, and there's no way to fix it either. Also, a quick side note, I gotta say, this game is mad ugly. Since this is a Koei Tecmo developed title, the aliasing is so much worse than it should be, so it makes low-res versions like Switch look disgusting. Some places don't even have actual lighting, causing the characters to look like they were photoshopped in. Also, these cutscenes are so boring to look at. While the P5 cutscenes aren't cinematic marvels or anything, they at least were active enough so that they would seem engaging. Whether it be cutting to a different angle or having a panning shot, they aren't nearly as static as they are here. You could be watching a 3 to 5 minute cutscene and it'll have no camera changes in the slightest. It's so boring. All in all, this game is kind of a technical mess, and it's honestly inexcusable for the price they were charging at launch, especially if you wanted digital deluxe. If you're looking into buying this game, I say wait for a sale unless you really like Persona 5. This game is often found at $40 or below depending on the platform and what retailer you look at. If you want this game on PC, I recommend going to Fanatical and snagging a key there, as it's always under 40. On eBay, physical copies generally go for under 30, especially if they're used. Definitely not a bad deal if you have some free time, but there are definitely better games out there, no doubt. Also, this isn't in the script, but this game's actually going to be a PS Plus title, so if you have a PlayStation subscription, you can just get it for free. So yeah, if you get it for free, it's definitely a good game.
So in conclusion, although the game is flawed, it's still very fun and still a Persona 5 story, which if that's something you like, then hey, go for it. Me personally though, I wouldn't play this over pretty much anything. If you guys like the video, comment, like, subscribe. I think that's it. I'll see you guys later. Peace.